Okay, why don't you call Donna?
Just one more minute, unless, Ronnie, if you can find out if Mike is ready to go.
Yeah, my key is on my desk. And John, what you gotta be careful is when you shift it into drive, under certain conditions, it takes a moment to catch the transmission up with the motor. So it's kind of weird. And it's especially noticeable if you are in reverse and you put it in drive.
Okay, Dave, whoever is close to Dave, he needs to mute.
But anyway, and I charged the battery the other day because
Can we get somebody to have Dave mute, please?
charged it up with the charger. Hopefully that'll be fine. Probably when you're driving to work later, it's fine.
Well, you're not going to be able to mute people next month.
Right, that's true. But at least I can get their attention. I can't get his attention right now. Aviva. Okay, we need to get going. We need to get this meeting started. I need Mike's attention, I need Dave's attention, and I need Ron. Let's go. Dave, could you mute yourself, please?
As soon as I figure out how, this is not my,
Hi, guys.
Okay, ready? Okay, let's get started. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We need to do roll call.
All right. Bear with me here. Counselor Paulson.
Here.
Counselor Fender.
She's excused.
Not here yet. Counselor Thompson.
Here.
Counselor Ocholi. Counselor Platt.
here.
Counselor Moore.
I am here.
And Mayor Gibson.
I am here. Okay, thank you. We need approval of minutes from July 15th, 2020, August 11th, 2020, and April 21st, 21.
I move to approve those sets of minutes as stated.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, 1,
All
2,
opposed?
4, 5.
Okay. Thank you.
5-0.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Now on the schedule, there's special presentation 4.1, but there's nothing there. So I'm assuming we don't have anything.
That's correct.
That's correct.
And so next up, number 5 is open forum. We welcome public comment at this time. The council will be happy to receive your comment pertaining to items on the agenda, including questions, suggestions, complaints, and items for the future. Each person's time will be limited to 3 minutes. Okay. Do we have anybody? Ronnie?
Looks like Viva's ready to go.
Okay. All right.
Yes, we have Viva that is ready, and then we have a couple other people that are in the lobby.
Okay. All right, Viva, state your name and where you live and go for it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Viva Gaylor, 12700 Beef Bend Road, King City. I have my King City Community Foundation hat on tonight. And I have 3 items I am going to quickly cover so that I don't go over 3 minutes. Number 1, I want to announce that Ken and I hosted a business roundtable for the last year. Well, our first one was a year ago, July 2020, and we're going to have another one July 27. So kind of a, I'm kind of proud of the King City Community Foundation and the businesses that have come, and we will continue to do it and get a little momentum.
Absolutely.
The-
And, before you move on, I just want to comment that you've done a fine job of pulling that together, and we've had some really good participation. So thank you, Viva.
Thank you, Ken. And from that, we were asked to do a shred event from one of the small businesses in town. And we have that scheduled for August 21st from 9 to noon in the park. And we're not just going to have a shred, we're going to have a dumpster for dry goods, a dumpster for tires, the things that are a pain to get rid of. And I'm working on the electronic dumpster. When I talked to Kristen T, rather than Kristen L from Pride, she is getting a little more information for us. There's electronics are just a little bit weird, but we're hoping to have it at the park. And the third thing I want to say is we did host the first community art event in the park in June. We had more people interested than that we could facilitate, which I was happy about. And there are pictures on the King City Community Foundation website, and I will put that in the chat for people. And so I just wanted you to save the date for August 21st. That's a Saturday, 9 to noon for the shred event. The shred trunk will only be there that long. The containers will be there longer. Thank you.
July 27th for the business.
Oh, thank you. And July 27th, that's at noon. And if you're interested, also go to the King City Community Foundation. And I'm trying to get all new businesses invited with an email. And I also, anybody that wants to volunteer to work on any of the events, please don't hesitate. Thank you.
Okay, and Viva, one more thing. I know you've been working to try to pull together the mayor's golf tournament.
Yes.
And I know that there's some concern over the date. And so I gave my response. I think your idea of doing it in the early October is doable. I don't think weather is a concern. So let's continue to have conversation with Bob and Joy on that, okay?
Perfect. I will. And we're looking at the first part of October to pick up again the mayor's golf tournament, but we're still kind of working on a date. We have differences of opinion.
Okay.
And with that, I think I did it in less than 3 minutes.
You did
Thank
fine.
you.
Thank you, Viva. I appreciate it very much. And who's next?
All right, I'm going to hand it off to the folks here in the lobby, and they'll just come in one by one.
Okay, and same thing, please state your full name and your address when you speak.
Hi, I'm Carlene Fitzmaurice, and I live at 15090 Southwest 116th.
Okay, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And what we're concerned about, and there are 5 of us here, are that there's no parking up there on a good day, or night, I should say. During the day, it's okay. And we have a lot of people there that can't get up that hill to walk. They're taking away their parking. And it's very frustrating. So then if they went down, if they had, if they could get a parking spot on King George, that's going to be backed up because it always is on the weekends. And the apartments that are just at Beefin and 99, they park in there every night, or not every night, on the weekends. And so they'll take those spots from us. We don't have parking up in the apartment at all because you have to pay to park in the covered spots, which I have done, but now they don't have any spots left and there's a waiting list. people can't get their groceries and go to their apartments, because if you go any other way, it's stairs.
Mhm.
There are a lot of people in King City apartments that, you know, they have walkers, wheelchairs, whatever,
Clearly understood.
and health issues, yeah. And it's very frustrating.
Well, it's definitely something that we're going to have to address. You know, my question to you was about the on-site parking at your complex, and you answered that question already. So, and honestly, I don't know what the resolution to this concern is yet, but you guys have communicated with Mike, and we as a council and as a planning commission need to figure out what is the best option with this. What are our alternatives in trying to make the street a little safer and make it flow a little better, make traffic flow a little bit better, and all those things. But this has to be considered, and I understand that, and we will do everything we can to figure out what it is we can do to resolve this. Okay.
Thank you, because it's really an issue.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, she just basically.
Did I say?
Yeah, you said.
Anybody else?
Go, Bonnie, go.
Hello, my name's Bonnie Johnson.
Hi, Bonnie.
I live on 116th at 15080 Southwest 116th, apartment 4. My concern is for the residents. A lot of them are disabled on that road. I don't know, maybe it's a consideration that you could put up signs that stimulate resident parking only for that one block on that steep hill, because that's the challenge for these people with the health issues.
Okay, and we have had some parking changes that we've done in other locations in King City, and we're certainly open to doing the right thing to try to help this situation. And you guys are bringing up some of the options that we have to explore, and we will do that. We will look at all options to try to figure out what's the best solution. Okay.
All right, thank you. We'll look forward to hearing your resolution on what you can do to help.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Ken or
Yes.
Mike, can we kind of jumped right into public comment without background on the issue that they're talking about.
Mhm.
And I know what they're talking about. I know that they're talking about the road improvements on 116th, but if someone
Right.
could just briefly mention, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay. And maybe Mike can do that. Just give us
Yeah.
an overall overview of what is driving this whole thing.
Okay, so is everyone familiar with 116th in its current situation?
Yes.
All right, currently there's parking permitted on the west side of the street for that first segment as you come off of Beef Bend. And then the parking kind of switches to the east side of the street, south of, I want to say, the crosswalk. There's a crosswalk on the south side of King George that goes across, and then the parking gets switched to that side. Our engineers and the TPS group, or sorry, the TSP group analyzed 116th and Beef Bend and identified that as an area for improvement because of the traffic warrants that were happening there. Left turns, right turns, both in and out of 116th. They called out the parking on the west side as a safety concern for vehicles turning onto 116th headed in the south direction. So the improvements that were part of the project list just happened to fall in our small cities allotment money that we got from Oregon Department of Transportation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just happened to have a grant to do repairs on 116th, just happened to fall immediately after we have all this stuff, instead of, this being 5-10 years down the road. And instead of basically doing the project twice, once now and then once again in 5 years, the timeline got pushed up to this year to take advantage of the state money that we had to do the road.
Mm-hmm.
How many parking spots will be taken out?
I think about 4 or 5,
Oh, more than that.
more than that. And then we're getting a consensus of about 5, maybe a little bit more.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
But and then in that, what we were talking about potentially doing is on the south side of King George, there's potential there, talking to Ernie, that area could potentially be open for parking. And there's also the idea of striping or identifying 2 or 3 spots right there at the corner of King George as handicap parking. And that was part of what we had told our engineers. I know that didn't resolve the problem that we're hearing from the residents about walking up the hill, which is, and does present some concerns. So there's the background. The other thing that we had talked about or discussed internally was that, and we heard comments on this, was that there was the cul-de-sac up above that was on level, and we hear that that's packed, and that there was parking inside the complex itself. So those were the 2 things that were part of the initial internal discussion, is that to kind of mitigate the loss of those 5 spots, there would be identified parking on the corner of King George for handicapped, as well as potentially opening up some parking to the south of King George that currently does not allow parking.
Okay. So any of the parking, all the roads involved in this, public streets? I mean, the
Yes.
side streets that they're talking about, are any of these private?
No. Well, except the cul-de-sac, I believe, up above. The cul-de-sac inside the apartment is private. There's also a cul-de-sac straight across the street that's private. But then there's Crown Drive, I believe, which loops around, and that's public. And although there's parking on there, and the people that live there believe that that's their parking, but that's actually public parking and open to the public as well. So
Okay.
we probably need to have a conversation with that apartment complex management group, so they understand that the city pays for those parking spots, we pay for the maintenance of those parking spots, and therefore those are open to the public. Because I think there's a misconception that those belong to them.
So Mike, I did talk to the new HOA president there. I forget her name. She is aware that is private street. I just don't know if it went forward to the residents. I'm sorry, not private, public streets. Public streets. I just don't know if that went to the residents or not.
Is that Shirley or?
No, it's a Shirley retired. It's I forget her name now.
I'll get it later.
Yeah.
So, this additional parking that we could end up getting, does that help to resolve the issue of people with disabilities that require walkers and all of that?
It won't.
It won't.
I mean, there's still a hill, right? So unless the apartment complex actually identifies handicap parking up on the cul-de-sac, which they should do.
Yeah, but then they have to go downstairs.
Right.
And
So
the cul-de-sac is full. It only has 5 parking spots. And also on King George, people that are living in the homeowners and the apartments, plus other people that live off of Beef Bend Road, they all park on King.
I can.
hang on. Come on. They can't hear
Come
me.
on up, baby.
So I'm going to hand it off, and
Okay.
you guys can hear the comments.
Hi, we need your full name and where you live.
I'm Bonnie Rabarchek, and I live on Imperial 11680. And I've been a resident here since 2007. And the parking has always been kind of a problem, but we've worked with it because we all kind of work together. But the cul-de-sac on Imperial only holds 5 cars. And people park on King George. Residents park there, the homeowners, people have to park there. It's already a one-way street sometimes with cars on both sides, but there's residents of King City Apartments that live on King George that have to have those parking spots too. But I guess the reason why I'm here is I'm here to support the ladies that are here that have really concerns about people with handicaps that are not going to have a place to park by their apartments, the hills, the stairs, and all of that. So yeah, it's a really, and a lot of people that have a handicap are very upset. because they don't know where they're going to park and how they're going to manipulate their walkers and their, wheelchairs and all that kind of thing.
So as it stands now, with things the way they are right now, are those people feeling comfortable that they have adequate parking today, the way things are? Or is it, because I thought I heard some conversation about people from, say, the other side of Beef Bend, on the north side of Beef Bend, parking in those locations as well. And it is public parking. It's not assigned parking.
Right, it is.
And it's not designated as disabled parking today. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And there
So
was
really anybody can park there,
right,
as it stands today.
right.
And if we were in a better situation where we could have designated parking, say for instance, I'm just trying to figure out what our options are. If we say that we have designated parking for residents only at that location and still do the improvements on 116th, is that possibly one of our options?
Well, to me, what you're saying sounds reasonable, but now Molly and Bonnie both have to park there on that street. There's another tenant that's where she goes to be picked up by her caregivers to take her to doctor appointments because she can't do stairs and et cetera, et cetera. So there, if there was someplace where these people could park, especially Molly and Bonnie that park on 116, and Molly needs to be close to her apartment to carry her groceries and stuff in because she can't do the hill and she can't do the stairs.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. And it's hard to visualize the distances that we're talking about and all of that. And I would think that maybe what we ought to do, and I will recommend this, that maybe we do a little site visit, maybe some of the counselors and I can come out and along with Mike and, work with you guys so you can show us, because it's hard to visualize, the distances that you're talking about and the obstacles that have to be dealt with. So I would, in order to try to, we can't make a decision tonight, and you understand that.
Absolutely.
I can't even say what our real options are, but I think in order for us to better understand what we're dealing with, it would probably be to our benefit to come out and walk the area, and so you guys can show us exactly what these obstacles are and what you might be dealing with if you have to park anywhere other than your parking today. I'd like to see where you park today, what you have to do in order to get to your apartment. And if you don't have that parking today, what would you do in order to be able to unload groceries and do all those things? I think
that's the most sensible thing that you've said, that you come out here in person and look this situation over and talk to these people that are really going to be the problem that they're going to have once this road. And I understand, progress. I understand the road. I understand all that. But the problem is that these people have lived here for a long time and they're handicapped to a degree and they need help and they need a place to park.
I understand. It's very important, and we have to have total respect for people with disabilities. We understand that. But without, pardon me?
Go ahead and finish your statement. I have two counselors that have questions.
Okay, all right. Without understanding that no decision can be made today at this conversation, you guys have brought up some important points. And my commitment is that we will arrange a visit to the site to try to get a better understanding of all the obstacles that you're talking about, okay? So counselors, who had a question?
Was first Counselor Thompson.
Okay, go ahead, Shauna.
Yeah, I think you already asked and answered my question. My question was, how many people living in those apartments need, really basically they need a handicap spot designated for them right there, it sounds like.
Right.
Are we talking about 3 people, about 3 spots? Is that?
The city's talking about 3 handicap parking spots along King George.
Well, no, I'm sorry, Ronnie. My question was for the residents, for Bonnie. How many people are currently relying on those spots there?
On 116?
Yes.
Okay.
5 to 8.
So there's at least 5 and maybe more. And when you go on around the corner onto King George, the people, there's 2 apartments there facing that those handicap ladies need to park in front of there.
Okay, so are you saying that there are about 5 handicap people with handicap parking permits that need those spots?
Right.
I mean, that's a really big issue, and I'm thankful that you all came to share that with us, because I wasn't aware that there are that many people that have handicap permits that need to park there.
And the
Because
people,
I drove by there the other day, and there really aren't other options for them.
there are not.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the people that live on King George, that face King George, and they have to park in front because they also have issues. When they leave and go somewhere and then they come back, then there's no place for them to park because
Okay.
a lot of people park on King George Drive.
Okay. We had one other counselor who had a question or.
That was Counselor Tom.
Kate?
Me, it was
Kate
me.
Moore. Yeah. Sorry.
Hi, Bonnie, has the property management company been helpful or addressed this at all?
The situation with that, and I'm not trying to glorify this, but we have a new manager and she hasn't been here very long, and she's aware of what's going on. And if she could, she was going to be here tonight, and her hands are kind of tied because, as far like one of the ladies said earlier, on Imperial, at the end of Imperial, there's 5 parking spots, and then there's carports, but those are all full. And so there is a problem, but there's other parking facilities there where people can park. But the thing is, because there's so many stairs and hills, there's so many people that live in those apartments, they need to park on King George Drive, and they need to have spaces on Imperial.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I tell you what, we will, I would love for us to reach out to the management of the complex as well, and to participate in this conversation that we're going to have at the site.
Our new manager's name is Jennifer.
Okay. Let's make sure that Ronnie and Mike know specifically who that is. And if you have a contact phone number, that would be helpful too.
503.
Well, yeah, just make sure before you leave that Mike has it, okay?
Number of the apartment, manager's apartment. Number.
Okay, all right, just make sure Mike has that information, okay? So, listen, this is important, and I clearly understand it. Some of the concerns, we're gonna have to be creative in what we do. I don't think any of you are opposed to making improvements on the roadway, but it's at what cost and what it's going to do to your ability to have those people with disabilities being able to function appropriately. So we will dig in and as quickly as we can try to put together a little site visit with some additional conversation, okay?
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Was that it?
Anybody else?
No, because we discussed it all. Yeah, except, yeah, got it.
Okay, that's it?
Summit needs to be comment, the management company, because I'm Molly Brandis and I live on at 15086 Southeast West 116th. And Summit doesn't seem to be, because I've talked to them before and they don't seem very concerned at all. They're so afraid that they'll take some grass area or some other prettiness away that some of us can't park. And I just think that they need to be contacted about this, because I think they just think we're all a bunch of old ladies who like to complain.
And you're referring to the management company?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, and we do need to include them in this conversation for sure. Okay.
Yeah. And Jennifer 100% agrees with this. So I've talked to her about it.
Okay. All right, you guys, we're gonna have to wrap up. I appreciate the comments, and we will continue to work on this, okay?
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
listening to us.
Yes,
Okay, you're welcome.
we appreciate it.
All right. Okay, we'll move on. Were there any other folks who wanted to speak on any other topic?
Thank you.
Ronnie, I'm asking you, anybody else?
Not that I know of, but looks like oh no, okay. I don't have any comments or anything to report on.
Okay, all right. And I know that Kristen and Kristen, is it Kristen? And Eric Anderson, I believe.
Yeah, we're on 6.1.
Yeah. No, that's the gas tax, but I'm wondering, you guys have been very patient. I would like to switch things around if I can and go to the Pride and then come back to 6.1 and talk about the gas tax. Can we do that, please?
Can I get a motion for that? And then
Yes.
we'll go ahead and get that.
So moved.
So moved?
Yep.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Second. And then everybody raise your hands real quick or not.
Okay.
Okay, passes.
All right. Let's move to 7.1, and we have a rate proposal conversation from Pride Disposal. Kristen, are you leading the conversation?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mayor Gibson.
Okay. It probably would be necessary to have a little background on this conversation because Shauna Thompson, Councilor Thompson, and Councilor Moore may not really understand that this is something that we have had several meetings on, and that there's a process that we basically agreed upon. And maybe you can kind of give some background and explain how we got to where we are.
Sure, I would be happy to. So thank you, Mayor Gibson and councilors, for your time tonight. I'm Kristen Leichner. I'm the president as well as one of the owners of Pride Disposal and Recycling Company. And we are your garbage and recycling provider. So we have, so in your packet tonight is our rate proposal. And as the mayor mentioned, we worked with council a few years ago to kind of perfect the process that we have in King City for rate setting. And back in December of 18, we worked together to make some changes to the code to shift to essentially a CPI index methodology. So we turn in an annual report to the city every year by March 15th. So March 15th of this year, we turned in a report with our 2020 numbers. And that has a rate of return based on our expenses and revenues in King City and based on our allowable costs that are a part of that report. So the way the code is set up is that if our rate of return falls between 8 and 12%, we use the CPI methodology. So if there's a target of 10, so if we meet exactly 10, then we use just the straight CPI index that we've agreed upon. If we fall between 8 and 10, then we use CPI times 1.25. And if we fall in the higher end of that range between 10 and 12, then we use 75% of the CPI. So we actually fell a little bit outside of the range for this year. So we fell at 6.91%. But given everything going on with COVID and the potential higher cost of doing a full-blown rate analysis, we proposed to just follow the CPI methodology, even though we were a little bit outside of the range, and apply the 1.25 factor to the CPI index. So that is part of what we have before you today. And that's kind of the history on how we got to the methodology that we're at today. So the increase follows that CPI methodology, but it also includes an additional increase component this year, and that is related to a significant disposal increase that Metro has passed. So Metro, our regional government, is the organization that essentially determines disposal fees at facilities across the region. And they raised their disposal fee 17% July 1st of this year, which was a pretty significant increase. Part of that is because they did not do an increase last year due to COVID, but it's also because they're raising making attempts to raise some funds for some other facilities that they intend to build. And they also have expressed that there may be additional increases in the region over the next several years. And so we were concerned if we didn't get ahead of this significant increase, that it would cause the rate of return for future years to go down. And we would, we feel that it's a better process to have smaller increases incrementally on an annual basis rather than big jumps periodically, which is why we moved to this methodology overall. So the Metro disposal increase has already taken effect. It took effect July 1st of this year, and we're proposing to delay the increase related to Metro until January 1st. So it falls in line with the regular proposed service increase. So that means that we would kind of carry that until that January 1st date. And so just for some context, the increase that we would be proposing if it were not for the Metro component on the most common cart size, which is a 32-gallon cart, it would be an additional 59 cents per month. With the Metro component, it would be an additional $1.61 on top of that. So what we have before you today for that most common cart size is a proposed increase of a total of $2.20. And I apologize, our rate packet that we submitted wasn't the best for 8.5 by 11. So I do have the spreadsheets in full if you would like to look at them. And the page that Ronnie has up now is the 2021. So that's our current rates. And then the next page in your packet is the proposed rate for residential. And as you can see, some of those extra fees on the right-hand side kind of got cut off a little bit there. So if you have any questions about any of that going from page to page, I'm happy to help walk us through that too. And so that's kind of the gist of what we're here to talk about tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Well, thank you, Christian. And listen, you guys, we know that these rate increases, I've always been very pleased with the way Pride has come to us and communicated their needs for these rate increases. We're always all concerned about any rate increase, even though it may sound small, an increase is an increase. And I think this year especially, it's become clear to me that there are a lot of outside drivers that's causing Pride to have to increase, and Metro is a driver of much of this. And I think that we all need to understand that Christian and her organization don't really have the ability to say, no, we are not going to accept this increase from Metro. I mean, at this point, it's not an option for you. You may meet with them and tell them that you don't agree with the methodology that they're using and the reasons that they want to do another increase to the magnitude of 17% or whatever it was, because there's some question as to whether or not they need to do the kinds of things that they're talking about doing that's driving that rate increase. Now, Kristen did take the time to meet with the Washington County mayors and to explain some of the impacts that Metro is having on not only their business, but certainly to other haulers in the region. And we are, as mayors, we are determined to support Pride and the other haulers who are doing such a great job for our communities. And at the appropriate time, we really want it to be known that we are not pleased with some of the decisions that's been made by Metro. There's support there, and I think they deserve that support. And I think Mike can comment on how it was so important to work with Kristen and Pride to develop this methodology in order to understand the reasons and the need to have increases periodically by their organization. So I have total confidence in Pride. I used to always ask that question, well, what if you don't get this increase? What is it going to do to the business? But I think I have a better understanding, but there's nothing wrong with you counselors asking that question. What happens if you don't do an increase? What happens if we say no? But I think the bottom line is that we have already agreed to this methodology, and it's within the methodology for this next increase. And I have the greatest respect, and I'm going to get off this soapbox, but Kristen and Pride have elected to not do this increase until next year, even though Metro has already implemented that increase that's already impacting their business. So,
Mr. Mayor, I have two questions, starting with Councilor Thomas.
Okay.
Thompson.
God, why do I keep doing that today?
That's okay. Thank you, Kristen, for being here and for sharing this with us. My concern, okay, I understand rates go up. I get it. I'm not opposed to rate increases overall. My concern is public perception, because we just had an increase last year in the middle of the pandemic. Huge headline in the Regal Courier, our local paper, City Council approves rate increase for garbage. And I'm just like, no, that the message, if we keep doing yearly increases that we have to approve, is that we don't care, right? I mean, that is perhaps the perception that the public is getting, is that we're making these decisions, when the reality is we're not making the decision. We're just saying, okay, I guess that's what we kind of have to do. So my question to you is, to all of you, is there a way that we can say, we're going to approve for the next 5 years, small increases, and we're going to vote on it in 2021, and we're not going to have to vote on it again for 4 or 5 years, just to help with the public perception. So it's not us against them, right? Like, I don't want our residents thinking that we're raising the rates, because we're not. But I mean, maybe it's how it's being reported, but I'm just wondering if we can make some kind of a change so that it's not as frequent, or, I mean, not as frequent that we have to vote on it. It can be a frequent increase. It can be monthly if it needs to be, 50 cents a month or something. But the fact that we have to actually vote on it and then have that be reported that we're making that decision is hard. It's hard for us, and it's hard for the public to understand.
Kristen, I might be wrong here, just rehashing this a little bit, but I thought that was the intent of passing this resolution ordinance like last year, was that they'd already have these factors built in, right? So that we wouldn't have to come back to the council every year. But we know that the cost of doing business goes up every year. We know that from experience, and you all know that from your businesses and experience. And we just know that the way the inflation goes, it's usually going to go up. And Kristen, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we'd kind of put that into the last version of the contract, that there was certain stipulations. If you were profit margin fell underneath a certain thing, then it was going to be this. If it went over that, then it would fall back down to a certain level. And I thought that's what we had added as part of that former contract. And my understanding is this is in compliance with that, right?
Yeah. So the way that the code language reads, it does kind of have, I mean, it's math, right? The CPI index is the CPI index, and based on the rate of return, it's a certain percentage that's applied to it. But there is still a process where, we don't raise rates without getting the okay from our elected officials, because that's the agreement that we have a geographic service area that's defined, that we are the only service provider in King City, but it also means we have to follow certain rules and regulations, and we can't pick up too early in the morning, and if we miss a pickup, there's directions on what we are to do to remedy that. And so the current process is that we do have to come to you annually if we are proposing a rate increase. So there's always room for changing those things if that's the will of the council, but that's the current process as I understand it. And so that's what we're following.
Okay, I have a Councilor Moore.
Kristen, thank you so much for coming. I've been a Pride customer commercially and personally, and you guys have never let me down. So I appreciate that. When I look at the increase in residential rates, it seems reasonable and minimal. When I look at the dumpsters, the yard containers, it seems like a big jump. Is it equivalent though? Like, volume wise, because I don't have a good understanding of how many residential trash cans make up a dumpster. Is it equivalent per like volume or weight, or is it calculated a little differently?
Yeah, so for this proposed rate increase, it is the same percentage that is being applied to all service levels. And I apologize, off the top of my head, I can't remember what that percentage is. But for a total, well, without the Metro component, it's $2.125% rate increase. And then on the commercial side, as you mentioned, because we did the analysis for the disposal component, so we there's different things that make up the rate. So there's labor, there's equipment, all of those things. And then there's also the disposal component. So in a 32-gallon cart, for example, that holds about 3 kitchen-sized garbage bags on average. A 1-yard container, it holds about 7 big black bags. So it's about 200 gallons per yard. So the disposal component related to that is going to be more than it would be for a residential cart. So we applied the percentage to the service as a whole as it stands. And then for the disposal component, we did it based on material in the containers. Does that help?
It does. I'm also wondering this, you might not know this off the top of your head, but I'm wondering how the proposed commercial rates compare to our surrounding cities. Like, I know you service Tigard. Do you service Beaverton?
We do service both of those communities. Tigard, we have a little bit of so we're not the sole service provider in either of those jurisdictions, which means that the multiple haulers all turn in individual reports. They're put together in a composite, and then they're analyzed for rate of return. So in Beaverton, for example, we have a very small section. And then in city of Tigard, we have about 80% of the city, and waste management has the other 20%. So I can certainly pull up, because we do service Tigard, I can pull up what their rates are. So for the 1-yard container that they just approved their rate increase, their 1-yard container as of January 1st of next year will be $123.81 per month. And the proposed rate in King City is $129.79. So about $6.
I do, and that's per week though, right?
Per month on the.
Okay, on the sheet here, it's listed as per week.
Oh, so the 1 time a week. So some customers have their container. Yeah. So some have them picked up multiple times per week. So for once a week, the monthly charge, it would be $129.79. For twice a week, it would be $244.49. So,
okay. So it'll be, but then of course, as the containers get bigger, the cost difference is probably bigger. Yeah. We've lost some businesses during COVID, and as people are shopping around, this is one of the expenses that they'll consider when they choose whether or not to put their business in our city. And so I worry about that being a big difference. Why would it be different from city to city?
Part of it could be the difference in distance from a community to a disposal site. Part of it could be the density of the businesses. So if you can pick up everything in strip malls versus having to go all over the place, it can also go to those are the main differences that come to mind, is the density and where businesses are located, because a 1-yard container is a 1-yard container, whether it sits in Tigard or King City.
Right. And we're kind of a one-stop shop when it comes to picking up those yard containers. I know that we have apartments and other facilities like that around the city that would have containers, but they're kind of we're not very big. So I do worry about that increase. I don't know what to do about it, but say that I worry about it.
Well, we're always concerned when there is any kind of increase. the question becomes, is it justifiable? You know, we've spent enough time with Kristen and the organization to convince ourselves that there's never been an increase that wasn't justifiable based on the business. It is important for people to also understand the outside drivers, as we talked about. And the question would become, what would this increase look like if there weren't any increase from Metro? What would that number be? Maybe you said it, but could you restate what it would look like if you didn't have that increase from Metro? What would we be looking at?
Yeah, so on the commercial side of things, if we were just talking about the CPI on a 2-yard container was the example that we used, it would be an increase of $4.63 per month. And the Metro component is an additional $12.49 per month. So of the $17.12, about a third of it is due to normal operations and 2/3 is due to Metro. And then on the residential side, it's a 59 cents related to CPI and a $1.61 related to Metro.
And those are big numbers in addition to what you would normally charge. And I think one of the things, to Shauna's point, is how do we make sure that our residents know the difference and what's driving those things, Pride versus Metro? Is there any way to have any kind of logical conversation that would help our residents to understand it's not just Pride, it's not just us saying, yes, go ahead and do what you want to do, but there's that Metro component that you have got to deal with that's impacting the cost of doing business in King City. So I think you might have talked about this some time ago about how in your rate increase information that goes to residents, does it break that down?
Yeah, and we are happy to include that breakdown in the rate increase notification. And I'm also happy to send it to Mike or anybody on staff that would like to take a look at it.
I think that's an important component. I see Dave has a comment.
I guess this is a question totally out of ignorance, but what does Metro have to do with this whole situation?
That's a good question, Dave.
I have no idea how that's connected.
Yeah, so Metro originally was created to deal with garbage and recycling in the region. And so they have their hands in a lot of other things now, but that was one of the big drivers for their original creation. And so part of that is they run 2 disposal site facilities. So they have Metro Central, which is in Northwest Portland, and Metro South, which is in Oregon City. And they assess disposal fees at those facilities to take in material and transport it to the landfill. We have a facility that does that same thing in Sherwood. And so there's different components to the disposal fee. So there's the operational component. What does it cost to do business, to run the material through our facility? And then there are taxes and fees that we pay per ton as well. And, about $2 a ton goes to DEQ. And my father, who I know is on this call, will correct me if I get the estimate wrong, but I think it's about $40 a ton of the total disposal component is fees that are paid directly to Metro, made up of regional system fee and excise tax. And the regional system fee money is used for things like household hazardous waste processing that Metro does at their facilities. And pre-COVID, they also use that money for the community events that they do around the region to collect household hazardous waste. And so when we say, they're raising rates, it means that all of those fees that we pay to Metro, we also have to increase those fees at our facility, but all of that money just flows through to Metro. It's not money that, we are keeping at our facility. We raise our rates to then give that additional money to Metro. So in the short version is a lot of what people pay in their garbage bill is collecting. We become the tax collectors for Metro. And then you as council become the bearer of approving rate increases that ultimately are helping fund programs that Metro does and future facilities that Metro would like to build, in addition to the two that
And
they
part of
currently
that
run.
increase is for these future facilities that they are proposing. There are questions as to whether or not those facilities are needed, but Metro believes that they are, and they have already convinced themselves that they need a rate increase in order to support that those future needs. So it's complex and it's frustrating, and a lot of mayors in the region are not really pleased with the way Metro operates in this arena. So we don't know, we don't have an answer to what to do, but I just can't see us beating up Kristen and her organization when they are being driven to do the kind of increases that they're doing, in part by Metro. But anything you can do, Kristen, to help what Sean is talking about, so there's a better understanding of what these rate increases are really derived from, will be a benefit, I think. And I don't really recall that article that you're talking about, Shauna, but I think we can always do a better job of communicating these things. And I don't think any article should be written on a rate increase without Kristen being deeply involved in the wording of that and what that really is talking to. Okay. And, you know, if we need to do that, if that's the way to get the word out on what this is really all about, then I would strongly recommend that Kristen and the person who writes for King City most often, Scott Keith, get your heads together and figure out how to, you know, communicate this to the best of your ability.
I think that's a great idea, Mayor.
Okay.
Is that something that you could do, Kristen?
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with the writer to work on something like that.
That'd be great. And going back to our earlier conversation, sorry, Ronnie, Kristen, is there a way that we can vote on this once and have it cover the next 3 to 5 years? Is there a way that we can say, yes, we approve this formulation, this formula that you have? Yes, we approve that for X amount of time. Is there a way that, if there's a way to do it, how do we do that?
Yeah, my take on that would be the way the code is currently worded, no, that it would require a code change, because the code currently requires, like, yes, it's the math problem, but then we still come before you and get your approval. So that way you're aware of what's going on. And not that you wouldn't be aware if we decided to do it a different way, but the way the code is currently written, I don't believe we could do that. So, you know, if that's the desire of the council, we'd want to work with you on, you know, how to potentially tweak that. The only caveat I would give is the only other reason then we would need to come before you is on potentially like future service changes. I know something that's on our radar is yard debris with food scraps, that may be a service that residents would like to have. And we actually expanded our transfer station right before COVID hit in preparation to be able to handle that material, because right now the only facility in the region that takes it is in North Plains, and driving to Sherwood rather than North Plains is preferable. And so we expanded our facility, anticipating that in 2020 we would go to our jurisdictions and propose these service expansions, but that would mean rate increases because it's more expensive to process that material when you add food. And we didn't feel that last year was the right timing to do that. So I share that just because something like that, if there was a service change that would require council approval, both for potentially frequency changes as well as rate changes, that would be an example of an exception where we might be coming to you in the interim if we were to go down a different path. And also just to share with you that that is something that's on our radar, and you know, we'd love to talk more about it at a future date.
And to Shauna's point, Mike and Kristen, what we did was we finally, because prior to approving this formula, we really were year after year trying to decide on approving a rate increase and rehashing that every time a rate increase was necessary. But then when we settled on the formula, what you're really coming to us saying is, how did the business work within that formula and this is where you need to go next. There may not be an increase in the way the formula is written during certain periods of time, right? But in this case, based on the formula that we agreed upon, it is necessary for an increase, not only because of the formula and what you need for your business, but also for what Metro did. Is that legitimate in the way we need to explain this?
So here's a question. I'm trying to get creative here. If we've already agreed to this formula, for example,
yes, we have.
Is there a way that we can reword what we're voting on every year? Instead of voting on a rate increase, can we be voting not to change the formula? I mean, can we get creative with how we say it?
I think I'm not in favor of doing that. Okay. I think we need to tell people this real story. Okay. It is a rate increase. And we understand how we got to it through the formula, and to turn around and try to give everybody an explanation of what that formula is and all of that, that's way too complex, I think. I think people need to understand that this is the cost of doing business. And we know, and I think this is the way we have to explain it, is that we know that Kristen and the team of Pride is not going to come to us without a legitimate rate increase that's based on need, okay? I believe that, and I think we need to instill some confidence in our residents that we are doing the work to make sure that there's no frivolous, unnecessary rate increases. And also explain that a rate increase from Pride is not just from Pride, it's also from Metro. And I think that can be done in the article that we're talking about with Kristen and Scott Keith.
Mr. Mayor, Eric Anderson had his hand up.
Okay. Eric. Hi.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I just had a couple comments to piggyback on what you guys actually just kind of had hashed out. That the article that the newspaper put that the council had voted to increase rates, I think was a little bit misleading in terms of the way this is actually set up. So the way what Kristen explained is exactly correct, that this methodology is in city code. And so council essentially voted to uphold city code. And that encompasses the calculation, the methodology, the CPI, all of those pieces within that. And so I don't think it's necessarily, we need to change the language, on how, to try to hide anything. Mm-hmm. But council has approved this methodology and is simply following the code. And as it's written, we bring to you the information to follow that code. And so just wanted to throw that perspective out there. And then just as a side note, the question was asked how comparisons were made to other cities, and Tigard was mentioned. I just wanted to point out that the Tigard rates that were mentioned tonight do not include the increase for the Metro, the new Metro changes yet. They're still working on those pieces. So as you're comparing those, Tigard is still looking at those, and so those rates are not completely a fair comparison yet. But once they're done with the Metro piece as well, then you'd be able to look at those and see that we are fairly similar across each of our jurisdictions.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. Okay, do we have any other questions or concerns? Kristen?
Yeah, I was just Eric kind of took some of the words out of my mouth, which is great. That's why we hire good people, right? But I was just going to add that part of, I think, Councillor Thompson, your concerns could be addressed in the way that we communicate via the letter we send to the customers as well, because it's always kind of been our practice to assure residents that council approved this change, not because we're trying to shift blame, but because they understand that there's a process that we go through and we can't just unilaterally decide to raise rates without going through that process. But I think we can certainly work on the wording there to be more in line with what Eric was saying, that it's like your code outlines how this is done. And so, we're following the code and, say it in that way so it doesn't come across as council approved this. So if you're mad at somebody, be mad at council, because that's not our intent. And that may be how it's coming across.
Kristen, it might also be helpful to say what the implications would be if we did not approve the increase too, like how that would affect service and that sort of thing.
That's always a good question to ask. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have spent some really good time on this topic. And so I believe that we're going to have a motion for approval of this increase. Mike, you have anything to add at all? Okay. And any final words before we get to a motion in a second? Okay, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Raise a hand.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Counselor Thompson, I think it's frozen.
Shauna?
I think she's frozen.
Oh yeah, she's not moving, that's for sure. Okay.
So I've got 4-0 with Counselor Thompson MIA.
Oh, we lost her, huh? Okay.
Yeah, we lost her. Let's give her a minute to see if she'll join back on.
Okay.
We can ask her for her opinion when she returns. So.
So Mike,
okay.
I would just say at this time, Kristen, thank you for the thorough explanation. And I think we better understand, I certainly do, how Metro is involved in this. And maybe we should focus our anger at Metro, right?
Well, we, as mayors, we always try to do that.
Well, and if I may, I just want to say that we try very hard as an industry, and our company in particular, to stay engaged with what Metro is doing that may eventually trickle down to our customers, such as disposal fee increases and things like that. And so I very much appreciate Mayor Gibson inviting me to the mayor's meeting a couple of weeks ago, because as I think he pointed out at that meeting, I think sometimes, when we're all the ones out there kind of raising the pitchforks, for lack of a better term, I think sometimes it's harder to listen to us. And so having other voices join that conversation, it will be helpful.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate your time. So we'll get Shauna's vote if she returns, but we'll move on to which is,
6.1.
Pardon me?
6.1.
6.1. Yeah, discussion on gas tax. And Ronnie, you're going to give us an update on some survey results.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through this real quickly so we can move on. So far, I have 192 people that have participated in the survey. I also have a very large, probably, I don't know, 75 more to enter into the survey myself for the folks that have mailed them back in. So that is a process.
So let me clarify, you have two sources, the 100 plus that you're talking about?
Yeah, so
electronic?
So 65 have done electronically, online, through the web browser.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have so far put 127 in myself from the mailed in.
From the mail-ins. Okay.
Yeah, from the mail-ins.
Okay.
So, and I think it's about, it looks like about 70.
More mail-in.
70 more that I need to put in.
Okay.
And then I'm not going to give you guys a whole lot of detail right now because the survey is still open.
Mm-hmm.
So just roughly, KCCA is the highest participants right now. Edgewater has only had 21 people. and then KCCA had about 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
And then everywhere else is kind of all over the board. So I need to clean up that data because, it says Jordan Way or Highlands, not entered, Garden Villas with a capital G, Garden Villas with a low G, or so yeah, it's going very well. I think this was an success in my opinion, because if you say about 200 surveys and what is it, Mike? What is our population right now? 4,400 ish.
They were closer to 5 right now.
I'm sorry.
I'd say we're closer to 5.
Closer to 5. So it's about like a 2 to 3%, and that's just like roughly. So that's kind of about average of what we've been doing for the TSP surveys and the master plan surveys.
So the question I have, Ronnie, do you have any idea how it's trending? Or
yes.
You want to talk
so
about
it is. I don't want to give you. Yes, I do know how it's trending, but I don't want to give that information out yet because I don't want it to play one way or the other. I really want it to be as much as organic as possible.
Okay, so the question I have is that at what point will we be prepared to make a decision on whether or not we're going to pursue November or wait until next year?
Okay, so that's a great question. From the preliminary results that I've gotten so far and that I looked at, I would highly recommend not doing it this year. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I am seeing, for one, a lot of people don't understand the difference between an HOA and the city and what our responsibilities are versus the HOA's responsibilities. So we need to help educate people on what the differences are and why we're going out for this, because a lot of people also say, well, you have $250,000. You haven't used it for a couple of years, so you must have $1.5 million saved up now, which is not correct because we do street maintenance every single year.
Right.
So Mike, you want to put in?
Yeah, I'll kind of comment on this because it's, we talked to the attorneys at PR groups and they were like, don't overcomplicate it. But we keep getting these questions like, where are you coming up with this $1.5 million shortfall? And it's basically a calculation that we look at our matrix and the scores that they're at right now on a scale of 1 to 5, right? So our engineers come through and they scale what the deterioration level of the asphalt is. And if it's like, I might have this backwards, but if it's 5, it's like at the top. And if it's like a 2, it's at the bottom and in need of repair. I might have it backwards. I can't remember exactly right, or I have it flipped. But anyways, the lower the score, the worse the asphalt is, and the more in need it will be of rehabilitation, which means a grind and inlay. So as the asphalt we know has about a 20-year lifespan, as it's reaching the end of that, we can look at when the road was paved last and forecast based on where it is right now. If it's ranking at a 2 or it's at a 3, and we know in the next 5 to 10 years it's probably going to go to a 2 and most likely a 1, we know that we could just add that to our estimated cost of repairs over the next 10 years. So what we're looking at is what the rating on those roads are currently and when they were last paved, to estimate that we're going to have a shortfall of $1.5 million in 10 years to get the roads to the level where we want them, which is between a 5 and a 3, right? Because that's 5 and a 3, the road structure is there, the base is solid, there's no potholes, it's in good working condition. 2, it's starting to crumble, alligator, and we're getting potholes, and it's beyond just a simple slurry fix, right? So we need to do a grind and an inlay. The other thing is slurries. What we've seen with slurries is that we lay down a slurry and it's good for 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years, and then it starts blowing out. It's really thin. That's what we've seen down in Garden Villa area. So we did slurries in Garden Villa to kind of help those streets, and that's what's blowing out now. You drive through Garden Villa and you see 1,000 little potholes that are about 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep. That's the slurry blowing out. So I think, in our effort to keep it simple, we've stirred more questions, which is good. We're getting more interest, right? And that allows us to answer those questions, which I don't mind. But at the same time, like some of those people are coming back at us and saying, well, why didn't you just put that in there?
Right. And so like Peter and Mike and I kind of also told people is we've designed those questions to, to see how people actually feel about taxes and their streets and how they prioritize items.
Right.
So the other couple of things I do want to mention real fast, and then what we can move on, is the comments. Some of the comments go from very positive to very negative.
Yeah.
Which we expected.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we also noticed was no Fisher Road extension. One of the things is, hire better contractors and vote better politicians. So they go all over the board on it. And with that, I think a public education campaign is definitely in order. Just to clarify these questions, and a lot of people are just kind of like sitting on the fence because they want to know the answers to the questions.
So, Ronnie, let me just interject here. So why don't we just synthesize that data and put it into something that the council can read when we're—
Yeah, so this is going to close on January 30th. And then I probably will have, I'm going to give myself a whole month.
You mean what? January?
January
or July 30th?
July 30th, sorry.
July 30th. Okay, I was going to say.
I was going to be like, that doesn't give us
It's going to be a
much
really
time.
long survey. So July 30th.
Right.
And then I'm going to give myself a whole month to analyze all the data.
Right.
And then I'm going to probably have somebody else review it just to make sure that it's correct. And then I didn't make any mistakes entering in things.
Okay.
So I also want to be clear on how I'm doing this. Each thing has its own little batch. The batch has its card, it's numbered, and it's signed and dated, and it's in the same system, so it's traceable. So that way, if somebody says, well, I don't believe this, there you go, it's right there. So yeah,
Okay.
fun. I do want a volunteer or two to help me with entering the data, because I still have all of this to go through.
Okay. All right, we'll try to figure that out. Are we at the point now where to settle the issue concerning a November effort versus the next May effort, how much more do we need to do in order to get to that decision? Anybody, Micah has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in there with the deadline that we would have for getting the ballot onto the November ballot anyway. It doesn't make any sense to try and push for November if we're not going to be able to even have the data synthesized by that point. Yeah. So it seems like it's really for lack of a better term, a no-brainer to move it to next May.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I'm in favor of doing that, but we need to make sure that we're all on the same page with it.
Right. And I agree with that. Pushing it either back to May or November, and kind of helping the gas stations kind of catch up from the last year too.
So in order to make that decision, do we have any other comments or opinions on whether or not we need to eliminate the idea that we're going to do something this November and just focus on trying to get something together if we're going to move forward in May of next year or November of next year?
Ronnie, you mentioned something about Fisher Road. Is there somehow a misconception that this gas tax is going to pay for the extension of Fisher Road?
Yes. Yes.
That's been thrown out there.
It's been thrown out there. So we need to make it very clear in all the documentation, in the resolutions, in the ballot. I mean, everything.
Has nothing to do about building.
Has nothing to do with it, with construction.
Right.
They're
Of new
just throwing
road.
all these allegations against the wall, Dave, in an attempt to see if what they can make stick and to scare people into voting this. But
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with the other. One has nothing to do with the other.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
completely different.
It's only for road maintenance, period.
Right.
And the reality, this is what we're dealing with, is the misinformation. And people are willing to believe what someone tells them without really doing any much research on their own. We see this time and time again. And we talked about it in the work session, okay? This battle that we are gonna constantly be in. And Mike, you mentioned the fact that it's either not enough information or there's too much information where people don't understand it. We haven't been able to find the sweet spot on this. And maybe we won't, because we do have a population of people who are going to believe what they believe. And if somebody says, you guys know that the council is just simply doing this in order to fund Fisher Road and to cram that down our throats, there are a population of people who will believe that. And I don't know that there's anything you can do to change their minds on it, So, and I'll give you, and I'm also starting to become more and more concerned about people, not their lack of willingness to really have an honest conversation with us about these things. And I'll give you an example. I have received at least 3 emails that's kind of bouncing back and forth between me and Mike. And every one of those I have responded by saying, I would love to have a conversation with you about this. Here's my phone number. Give me a call. How many calls have I received? None. 0. Okay? To have a conversation about these things that says, let me help you explain what it is we're doing, what is our viewpoint, and why we're doing what we're doing. And I'm convinced that many people who are in opposition to whatever we're doing don't really want to talk to us about it. And I'm going to keep doing that, though. I'm going to, every time I get an email from somebody who says I'm in opposition to the things that you're doing, I will give you my phone number. You call me and we can have a conversation about it, And we already used the example of the individual who sent an email to us. I left my phone number for him, met that person at the meeting in the park, and that person wouldn't even give me his real name. So do you want to talk about this or not? So we just have to keep trying. We can't give up. All of the things that we're going to do is based on honesty and transparency. And this is what we're attempting to do to benefit you in this city. There's no reason for us to do anything else other than to do what's best for this city. But people want to believe smoke and mirrors, and they want to believe that somehow there's an ulterior motive. It's a hard battle to fight, you guys. But we can't give up. Shauna.
So along that vein, I was having a conversation with some residents the other day, and I wasn't able to answer their question. Their question was, in regards to the gas tax, if the city has $1.5 million in work that needs to be done, like a backlog, why was so much money spent on
the median on 131st. I feel like it was like $1.3 million or something. So why was that money spent when there was a backlog of maintenance that needed to be done?
Different bucket.
Different pots of money.
Different pots.
Different money. 131st was transportation development tax funds. We can only use those funds on Beef Bend, 131st and Fisher. That's another reason why Fisher makes sense when we talk about East-West Connect. Because we have a different pot of money to do the improvements.
Completely different pot. And Shauna, how would you know that? I mean, and honestly,
I had no idea.
People need to understand that this business is complex. They either want to oversimplify it or they want to make it sound like we are doing something under the table or for some unknown reason. But I talked to a woman who's lived here since 2002. And guess what she asked me? She asked me, where is City Hall located? She's lived here since 2002.
Wow.
Okay? So those are the kinds of things. You know,
no, I was going to put it in the chat, but I just want to explain it's not a current shortfall. It's a projected shortfall over the next 10 years.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that either.
So we're still putting all of our money into repairing the streets as much as we can. We still have some streets that we'd like to repair that we can't because we don't have the money to do it. But we're throwing all that money that comes in every year, we spend it on the streets. Okay. We're projecting that we can't keep up. So every year the cost goes up and we're able to do less and there's more to do. So it's going to keep doing this.
Because all the streets are getting
older.
And
say that there was a backlog though on that survey.
And let me say this, you know, Shauna, I think your point is important because that's what we were hoping to have more in-depth conversation as an entire team in the workshop. Okay, we didn't get to it. We didn't get a chance to talk about this because, you know, it was consumed by an important issue. And we had to dig deep on that, okay? And I think that was a benefit. We know more. But I think we need to do this more often where we can all get together and really understand what it is we are doing and how we get to these kinds of decisions and, you know, what those decisions are based on, you know, and that's the education for us that we have to really start doing more of, but it requires more of our time. And we understand that is not easy in itself, but for us to be able to talk to this stuff and to be able to talk to our residents when we get an opportunity and be on the same page as a team with a level of understanding that is accurate, we're going to have to sit and you can't do it all in a council meeting. We know that. There's no way we can do it. So we have to prepare ourselves to have more of these kind of in-depth educational meetings as a team. Okay?
Can we get one scheduled? Can we send out another request for people's availability and get another one on the books?
Yes. Yes. And we have to.
Yeah.
Okay? Because this is the only way we're going to be in a situation where people really understand. And it's educating us, but there's an educational process because many of our residents don't understand what we do. They don't understand what the council or the planning commission is charged with doing. So if they don't understand city business and they don't understand what we're here to do and how we make the decisions that we make, then they're at a disadvantage for even trying to understand what we put in front of them. Okay? But we have to educate ourselves first and then be more prepared to educate the community when they come forward and they want to talk to us about these kinds of things. We got to spend the time doing it, okay?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Moore. I think during this time specifically of all of this planning that's going on and all of the community misunderstanding or needing more information, I propose a quarterly work session so that we can all get the information, we can all be on the same page, so that we can communicate intelligently with our fellow residents and community members.
Yeah. And, you know, and right now we could almost do it monthly. You know, I mean, really.
Absolutely.
Moving that fast. There's that much going on.
Yeah, I would love it. I would love it.
And I understand you guys are all busy, and I understand the workload that you already have with work and children and all of that. But the more often we can really dig into these things, I think the better off we're going to be. Micah, did you have something?
I was just gonna say, I completely agree with that. And I actually very upset that I missed the work session. It's just, I honestly, a morning session, I cannot do during the week right now.
Okay.
It's just my work is far too busy right now, and I have 6 conference calls a morning. I can't get away from that. If we can do an afternoon or an evening, I absolutely will be there and want to be part of it. It's just I felt terrible not being able to be there, but I couldn't do it.
Okay, why don't we talk about that right now, just to see, you know, if we do when we do the next one, we are going to do it, okay? And I understand we start getting into vacation season in August and all of that. But if we were to do one next month, would it be appropriate to do it in the evening this time, 5:30, something like that, so that we can have another stab at it? That doesn't mean we're going to have 100% participation, but I saw the struggle for some folks getting there. You know, Smart, he made it, but it was a struggle. Okay, so will you guys be open to having one in August that would be in the evening? And when I say evening, 5 or 5:30 start time.
Well,
absolutely.
I'd like to propose, what if we just, because now we're going to be in person for city council meetings monthly anyway, what if we just showed up an hour early or ish and called that the work session? Is that a possibility? Because then we're all planning on that anyway. It's all on our calendars anyway. So maybe instead of showing up at 5:30, we show up at 4. And I know it's a long night, but then we really can dig in and we all have it scheduled anyway.
See, the thing of it is, and this is just from my experience, that when we combine meetings, we either are going to cut something short, because I would rather have an open end where if we need to stay in a conversation, that we can finish that conversation, just like we did for the one we did last week.
We even have to cut that one short too.
Yes, yeah, but you know,
because you know it gets interrupted by people that are if people actually come to our council meetings, that transition period of people trying to come in, getting ready for the council meeting, that makes it more difficult.
I would rather keep it separate. And Shauna and you and Kate don't know this, but we used to have more than one council meeting a month.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like when we went to one council meeting a month, we said we needed a work session. We would put it at that 5 o'clock hour on the first Wednesday of the month, right? It would either be the 4 or 5 o'clock. It would be earlier in the day.
I forgot that.
So that we could, it would be earlier in the day. It wouldn't be the 7 o'clock version or the 6 o'clock. It'd be earlier so that the staff isn't working so much overtime, but not so early that like the counselors can make it, right? So it was later in the day, but not too late.
Yeah.
And we had it on that first Wednesday of the month, but we only did it as we needed it. So, now we have a lot of stuff flowing around. The staff, myself, Keith, we're reviewing a lot of documentation right now. We have other items stewing in the back that Ernie and I are working on. There's just a lot going on right now, and with all the misinformation that we see floating around town, I think it's wise that we are at least on the same page and we understand what's going on. If you wanted to do a work session, I would recommend August 4th at either 4 or 5 o'clock.
I agree. And we need to take that slot. We need to take this time. And I think it's going to be of great benefit to us in the long haul to commit this time So let's, what do you say, Mike? It's the 4th?
Yeah, August 4th is the first Wednesday in August. It's 2 weeks from now.
Okay. And we all agree that we are going to put together a work session. Top of the list will be the gas tax. We'll talk about that. And we will, over that time period, if any one of you know of any other topic that we need, maybe if we just keep it at 2 topics for that work session. We say gas tax. Is there something else that we need to add to it that we really need to dig into for a deep dive? Let's figure out what that other item might be. And Mike or Ronnie or anybody else can come up with what that second item might be.
I'm thinking it's probably going to be ARPA. ARPA should be coming here shortly.
Yes.
American Rescue Plan. So
okay, let's do that then. Let's just settle on it right now. Let's say that we're going to do gas tax and ARPA. Sean?
At 4 o'clock? Does 4 o'clock work?
it works for me. I prefer 4 o'clock.
Let's figure it out. Micah, what's the earliest time for you?
I mean, I'd prefer 5, but I could make 4 work.
Anybody else have an opinion on that?
I from experience, I know Jamie likes 5 to 5:30.
Well, and I'm not trying to be mean.
No, and I understand.
But there's going to be sacrifice no matter what we do. Right. Unless your name is Dave Platt or Ken Gibson, where you don't have a job and young children, you know,
I can do 5 o'clock.
You're going to have something you have to deal with.
I can do 5. I was just more thinking of the staff and having to pay overtime.
I understand.
I can totally do 5. No problem.
Anna, that's why I decided that we want to do a morning meeting, because I didn't want, the staff is always the ones to sacrifice and have to have a very long day when we have an evening meeting, okay? And I'm just trying to give them a break too. But
yeah,
let's say 5 o'clock on the 4th, with topic being gas tax and ARPA.
I like it.
Okay.
So is that 5 o'clock you said?
5. Yeah, 5 o'clock.
Is that planning commission too, or just?
Yes, I want the planning.
Everybody?
Don't. Yep. I mean, they're getting hit with some questions too.
Yeah. All right.
I say yes, let's invite the planning commission. That's part of the team.
Is it possible to have dinner brought in?
Now you're pushing it, John.
Now you're talking.
I don't know. I'll have to look and see what I can do.
One of our local restaurants would probably love to cater. I can be there.
I'll call around and see if we can get something. Might just get some pizza.
Yeah.
Is it middle of the dinner?
BYOD. Your own dinner. So, okay, we'll figure that out. But look, I think this is a great conversation. I think this is what we need to do, okay? So I'm excited about it because I get frustrated because I know what we're doing. I know what we want to do. And I know why you guys are here doing what you're doing, okay? And it's important. We need to educate and we need to be prepared, okay? All right. So with that being said, any other conversation surrounding this topic?
Ready to move?
Okay, 7.2, resolution number R 2021-08, resolution of the City of King City, Oregon, acting as a local contracting review board, awarding a contract to Knife River Corporation for 2021 street improvements and authorizing the mayor and city manager to execute the agreement.
Basically, Knife River was the low bidder by about $50,000 from the nearest bid. So MSA is recommending that we award the contract to Knife River to handle the street repairs for the 2021 year.
Okay, so that's any street repair that we have?
All street repairs, yes.
All street repair.
So
Ronnie, don't.
And so for Shauna and Kate, Knife River did 131st, is that correct?
That's correct. No, I thought that was S. No, it might have been Knife River.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Knife
It was
River.
either Knife River or S2 was doing King Richard. That's right. So Knife River did do
Knife River.
Yeah, they did 131st, which I think they did a pretty good job on it. Okay. So we need a motion for this in a second. And now unless you guys need more information, if you need more information, ask the question.
I move approval of resolution R-2021-08.
We have a motion. Sean, I'll get to yours. Do we have a second?
Second.
Keep more. All right, discussion. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. We're not voting to approve the work to begin. We're just voting to approve that when the work does begin, this is the contractor we're going with. Is that correct?
This is the contract for the street improvements of 2021. So it awards Knife River the street improvements as bid out by the city as part of our contract, which would, of course, include the one that we just talked about earlier with the comments. Now, what we need to do to address that is we need to go out and look at the site and see if we can work out an agreement with the apartment complex to potentially attain some extra land to add some parking there. I don't believe that we can try to change this RFP and this bid process right now. This is not the time or place to do that because we've already put out the bid. We've already put everything out there. Now, if we want to change something, it would have to be a change order after the fact.
Okay, but thank you for that, Mike. My question is, if we vote yes right now, are we okaying them to start the work at some point?
Yes.
So it doesn't seem like we are ready for that yet.
It puts the ball in their court. They have to mobilize. They'll give us a schedule and gets us going on contracting. So this is the contracting portion. They'll let us know what their schedule is and when they can get us into their calendar to get the work scheduled.
But you understand what I'm asking, right? Like if—
Are you asking like, do we know when they're going to hit the road and start construction? No, I don't know that.
No, I guess my question is, if we as a council vote right now to approve something that we don't know if we really want that work done at all, like we haven't made that decision yet, and it's very contentious, it sounds like, the residents don't want this project.
Okay, so I'll back up 1 second there. We can still do the project.
Okay.
Still do the paving because that needs to get done, right? We can still get out there, do everything that needs to get done. The only thing that we need to think about is how it's striped.
Turn lanes versus parking.
Yeah, it's a parking issue.
Right.
Right.
As
It's a
opposed
parking
to
question.
work that they'll actually do. So
we can finish the project, even if we stripe it as it's scoped right now and it's striped as it's scoped. We can still come back later on a side project and readdress parking. We can work with the apartment complex to try to acquire land and readdress parking and bring in a different firm for that particular piece.
Yeah, but if we stripe it as it's scoped, then we are removing all the parking there. And
Yeah.
I am not doing that. I don't think that is the right decision for our residents. We've got—
And as Mike just said, this just authorizes the work on the road. The striping can be determined at further towards completion.
Right, but he just said that if the striping's done, then we'll circle back later. I just don't want
to. Striping's done, but we're moving to approve. The improvements to the road. The striping can be determined further down the line once we're getting to that point.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we have another conversation before any striping occurs, because the last thing I want is a turn lane put in and the parking taken out, and we haven't revisited this topic.
okay, we're going to, and I think we're all on the same page.
Okay.
But the striping and the parking is still an issue that needs to be resolved. And we're going to have to try to figure out how to resolve that. But the repaving and all of that shouldn't have anything to do with what we decide on that striping. Okay.
Sort of. Once you repave the street, if you don't put striping in, then What, you just don't have any stripes?
Well, no, I don't know.
We need
that.
to get it resolved, that's for sure.
Yeah, we
There's
need
a
to
very
get it
short
resolved.
window to resolve it.
Right. So can we table this, or do we have to vote on it right now?
We need to vote on it
Because
we went out for bid. We had contracts drawn up. They were the lowest bidder.
We have to do that. But Sean, I assure you that I want to resolve this as well, and we will get to a resolution on the parking issues. And I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we do know that the way the bidding works, that Knife River should be designated as the company to do this work. That's what we're doing today.
And just throwing this out there too, I mean, most likely we vote to approve it tonight. The work is not going to be commencing within the next month, probably. We would have another council meeting during that time as well that we could discuss that. We could discuss it during the work session or the workshop too. Not to add one more topic to that, but
yeah, I think we could discuss it at the work session piece at least, you know, so you all understand what's going on.
It does seem like we have time to make that decision. While it is a quick, not a long time, we would have the opportunity to discuss that again outside of this vote.
can we add that to our work session, and perhaps since we're meeting at the City Hall anyway,
yeah,
beginning of our work session is that site visit, because we're all going to be there and it's right across the street, and we can make a decision at our work session.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we're not putting parking before safety though.
Right. No, and I understand the whole dynamic of it, and we all have to understand that whole dynamic.
Yeah.
What we're talking about doing here. So yeah, this is a great workshop topic, and we will. I don't know if we can do the site visit before that, but I do want to have a site visit that has the appropriate people involved to really understand what the concerns are for parking. Okay, so I think first we need to understand the scope of the project, and we'll do that. And then when we have that site visit, we'll have that in our minds and also what the people are talking about and try to figure that piece of it out.
And Shauna, when I was talking to the ladies out here in the lobby, we were talking about potential ways that we might be able to help this. There's some opportunities for internal stuff that the apartment complex can do. There's also maybe we can help the apartment complex do some of these things. And then there's also the possibility that there's enough space there between the apartment buildings themselves and the roads, and maybe we can have a pull-out parking area along that strip that's not going to interfere with the safety of the lanes that we need to handle and accommodate the traffic that we have going through there. So we need to start thinking outside the box. This contract doesn't change any of that. We still need to address the safety concerns at the intersection. As like, that should be our responsibility, safety concerns. Parking is parking. We understand it's there. We understand it's a bit of a headache, and we understand the need for these folks to have parking in that location. And we need to find something outside the box that doesn't interfere with the safety. And I
Can I
think
ask a
that's,
quick question along that line? Has anyone ever been injured at that?
we have had accidents at that spot. So I don't know what the injury reports are, but yeah.
I remember you said that a parked car got run into once. I was just wondering if there's ever
Couple
been
times.
an injury.
I don't know what the injury reports are. Ernie, do you happen to have any data for injury reports at that location?
But we can provide some of that information. Just have it ready for the 4th if there's anything out there that shows that information. Okay. So and then the other thing is that Shauna, and we've had success in working out some parking issues throughout the city. You know, the parking issue off of Fisher Road, where folks from the apartment complexes were constantly parking in front of homes there. We eventually resolved that with parking permitting, and we had parking issues building up to the annexation in the Highlands that needed to get worked out. So we have a pretty good track record for resolving these things. And, you know, I love your passion for doing it the right way and making sure that people with disabilities are respected and they have an opportunity to function as best as they can under these circumstances. But when they start talking about negotiating stairs and all of those kinds of things, you know, we can't fix all those things. We can try to help, but there's a lot to be considered. So, but we'll get to it. Okay.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the contracts and award the bid to Knife River.
All in favor?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you guys, appreciate it. I love these spirited conversations. You know, this is good stuff. This is what we need to be doing. Okay, so 7.3, do we really need to do a master plan update?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
There's not much to update on other than
They
we're
changed the
working on the scoping, but you guys already knew the multi-analysis scoping of east-west connectors. Other than that, I think TSP document is supposed to be delivered in the next week or so. And then we're supposed to be reviewing that, Keith and I. So I expect that to be downloaded onto my desk in the next week or so.
And if there is, if we have time and there is a significant update that you can do at the 4th, let's just leave it open to that, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
7.4 town hall discussions in response to that. I talked to, did you all get the email from Keith Leiden, our
yes, I did.
All right. So he's asking that we push that back and coordinate with the master plan group 3J and the master. Yes, Councilor Moore.
Sorry, we didn't get the email. So if we need to know what was in it.
Okay, that's what I was elaborating on. He's just basically asking that we push it back and coordinate with 3J and don't go out to a town hall until we actually have information to support. Because if you guys were at the park one, we didn't have a lot of information and we're getting dragged across the coals because we didn't have any factual data or information to provide them. So one, they're not really asking questions anyways, they're just accusing us of doing stuff and we don't have any factual evidence to support our case or the case of the consultants, and we just get raked across the coals. So what Keith is saying and asking is that we put this off until 3J has a chance to provide the data that we need to address east-west alignments and alternatives and road counts and all that jazz. Yeah. So our best guess is late September, early October, perhaps, and it might get pushed to late October, depending on how and when we can get all this stuff done.
Okay. And I agree with that 100%. I want to do the town hall, and I want the information that we need and the experts there to answer these questions, okay? We have a basic understanding, and I know some basic things that are inaccurate in, say, for instance, the petition, but it's going to be extremely important for us to be able to specifically talk to the things that are factual, that are the truth, and explain it so that anybody will be able to understand it. We will give people an opportunity to stand up and ask the question that probably they should have asked before they signed the petition, but that's neither here nor there. So we will definitely do that. The other thing that we kind of talked about, and I'm just really adamant about this, is that I think this town hall needs to be at our city hall. And even if we put the word out that is first come, first served, we have limited capacity for people to show up, and that we will only take a certain number of speakers or any of that kind of thing. But I think it needs to be at our King City Hall. I want crowd control. I don't want to move to a venue where we have no idea how many people are going to show up or who's going to show up. So I am going to stay pretty adamant about that City Hall is where it needs to be.
And we'll record or stream it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. So you guys can argue with me if you want to, but you won't win. Okay? All right. All right. So what's do we have remaining?
Annexations, do you have anything to report on that, Ronnie? I mean, other than it's a slow go.
Yeah, so
It's gonna
annexation
take
for the
more.
Bedford area is extremely slow. I only got back 5 cards back. So I think it's time to do the next step of actually going to the houses and knock on the doors and trying to get people involved on that one. And the same thing with all the other areas, 123rd and a couple other spots.
Realistically, do we see ourselves doing anything with this year? I mean,
No.
No. I mean,
No. I believe all the paper, in order for us to be successful at this and get it to Metro on time, it would have to be done by August.
Right. I really believe that, we're not out of the woods on COVID. People are still concerned. There's still some rising numbers. The variant is a concern and all of those things. And I don't think we want to have anybody knocking on doors and doing all those kinds of things this year. I think we can put that off until next year. We have many other things that we need to be working on. At least that's my recommendation.
Yeah.
Any comments?
And that's all I have on that.
Okay. Any comments, any questions, concerns about annexation? Okay. All right. Let's move into report outs. Ernie, how are you?
I'm well.
Okay.
My head's kind of spinning after all this. So just I'll try to get over through some things quickly. Hiring process, we went out for a lateral process, kind of been a tough go. Got a couple things we're fighting. Everybody is trying to hire and hiring laterals. And so the bigger departments that can pay a lot more than we can are, stealing a lot of applicants. And so it's been kind of tough. We can get to a pool of, what we call new hires that would have to go to the academy. That's something that is fairly easy to get into and to hire, but we're going to have another little stretch here where we're going to look for some laterals and then hopefully be able to hire somebody sometime next month. And starting next month, John Huffman, new officer, will be off to the academy. And so that kind of leaves us in a short manpower. And so we've got, obviously, Brian and I are working the road. I think it's about a total of 70 hours a week that he and I are covering. And so in order to accommodate and not run everybody straight into the ground, Mike wanted me to brush on a contract that we've looked into and entering into with the county to provide some contracted patrol services for us so we can grant some vacations and some time off. It's right now it looks to be around 11 to 12 days. Basically that'll encompass in August. And so you could see some Washington County deputies that would respond to not just priority calls, but any call for service, which they're ranked from 1 to 5. And so you could see that coming up, and I can answer some questions about that in a bit, or if anybody has one right now, or if Mike wants to chime in too. I'd be willing to, if anybody has anything on that right now.
I just want to say that sounds wonderful. You guys have been working so much.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not exactly cheap, but it's one of those things that it's just kind of what we have to do right now in order to, basically provide some relief for the staff to be out there because, there's basically, you see 4 of us, 2 of us that are covering days and 2 of us that are covering nights. And so we're trying to stretch those hours out the best we can and, trying to keep everybody as upbeat as possible. We were out at the range today, shooting holes in cardboard, and everybody's always a little happier after they get out there and do that. It's a good stress reliever and stuff. So it's something that, is fun and something that honestly we have to do more of. But so there's that aspect, from the office standpoint. I finally was granted my seat on the WACA CEO board. Thank you to, I think it was Shauna, right? That was kind of in there with me pretty hard and stuff. So, and of course, the first thing we go into is a contract negotiation, and that's going on. And so, it got thrown right into the fire, and they're probably going to regret me being on that board right now. But because I ask a lot of questions and I'm being thrown in the deep end, right? And so it's something that, stuff kind of has to get rehashed. And I do, from that standpoint, I ask a lot of questions. And I think I'm going to kind of let it go with that. I don't think I have anything else. If something pops up, Mike can remind me.
Well, I appreciate you representing King City the way you do, and it's an honor to have you with us and also representing the activities that you're involved in. I appreciate what you do, really do. And please, every opportunity you get, let your staff know, your force, that we appreciate them and what you guys are doing in order to work through this staffing shortage and the kind of time and energy that they're putting in. And by all means, you guys remain safe. And I just get concerned about your safety and being well rested and being able to do what you do. So just do the best you can to stay healthy and safe.
Well, we appreciate that. And are we in council next meeting? Is it going to be in person? Our next city council?
The regular one or the workshop?
Regular.
Regular.
Hopefully it's going to be in person.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I've got some awards that are long overdue to a few officers that I've got some life-saving awards that need to be handed out, and they all voted to have it done in person rather than done over Zoom. So we'll have that for the next meeting.
Okay.
So some employee recognition there. And that's it. I'll get out of the way.
That's excellent. Look forward to that. Thank you, Ernie. Okay, Mike, you're up.
My advice, watch your speed on Fisher Road. I think I told everyone I wasn't really paying attention driving down Fisher Road, and I got accosted at the park for speeding. So, probably need to watch my speed a bit better. And I would advise you all that with all the highlight on Fisher Road, it's probably best that we all kind of watch our speed limits and speedometers a little better. And, I apologize for not doing that like I usually do. Just wasn't paying attention and was in a bit of a hurry. So I guess just make sure that doesn't happen again.
I appreciate that. And, I respect the fact that you know what you were doing. And, for all of us, we're always going to be held to a higher standard. That's the way it is. And that's the way we have to see it. So you've told us all, and we know that you are aware that you should have slowed it down. So
yeah, it's just something I need to be aware of. I just wasn't paying attention. I was on my off time and doing my thing, but there it is. So just be aware. They're watching for you. Other than that, I already mentioned TSP should be coming out in the next week or so. We're trying to wrap that contract up by the end of the month. We have ARPA agreements just came out today. Ken, we sent those over to you to review and sign the appropriations on that piece. That's basically allows the city to receive those funds. The city is scheduled to receive 2 payments, one in year 1, one in year 2. I think the total of those are right around 469 or 468,000 per pop. We have a couple of things kind of lined up for that. We can kind of talk about it during the work session. We'd like to see what we can do for the folks that work throughout the pandemic. I'd like to see what we can do for our essential employees. And I would like to see, if possible, we have a means to do the purple line with Clean Water Services. I've been working with Joe Gall and Mark Jockers over there at Clean Water Services to figure this thing out. and put together a bit of an idea and proposal to get it extended. We also have been working with Rep. Neron and Senator Thatcher's office. I think Mayor, you were on that, if I'm not mistaken, about extending a broadband loop from Wilsonville through Sherwood up around King City and back down Roy Rogers. That would tie us into the Sherwood broadband connection. Currently, we are with Charter. No complaints on Charter service. They do us good service and everything else. But a little redundancy never hurts. And also a little competitive fire maybe gives us better deals later on. So other than that, you know, we are basically full-time, back to regular hours in the office. Passports are continuous. We are short-staffed for the time being. We just brought on Officer Huffman, but he has academy work that he still has lined up in front of him. We've got some other things that we're dealing with, you know, some personnel stuff, some office logistics. Sam is scheduled to go out here in the next month or so on maternity leave as well. So we will be short-staffed not only in office, but also in police side. So we are looking at the potential of, what's that?
Dave Runyon is out as well, isn't he?
Who?
Dave Runyon.
Yeah, Dave's out with surgery right now, shoulder surgery. So yeah, we're down low. But we are looking at the potential of bringing in like a finance clerk to kind of help with finance and do passports. So we're kind of going to have to build that job description and put it out across the wire and see if we can entice anyone to come in for that. Let's see, what else we got? We have the Washington County Sheriff's Agreement. Ernie talked about that. We have a pending IGA with Clean Water Services. It's a revision of our current IGA with them, just updating our service agreements and those sort of things as well. I expect that will probably be to you in August. So we don't quite have it finished yet, but I expect it by basically we're waiting on legal review on that one. Other than that, I think that's about what I've got to report.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Along those lines of the broadband loop for Sherwood broadband, I made that announcement also that we were working with Sherwood and the funding from Neron and Thatcher when we did the mayor's forum for the West Side Economic Alliance. And right after the meeting, I got a call from Comcast wanting to talk about what they might be able to do. So the competition issue will jump up right away on, wait a minute, what about us? You know, maybe we can do something that will be a benefit as well. So, and I think it's a good thing.
I think a little good friendly competitions for the better.
Absolutely. I haven't connected with the person yet, but I'm very interested in seeing what that individual has to say about what Comcast wants to do for King City. Okay, yeah. So we will see. So let's go around the horn. And Kate, you have anything?
I might just note that Comcast provides TV services for the Highlands.
Yes. Yes, they're all over. I have them for internet and phone. So, you know, they're a player, that's for sure. So, Kate?
Okay. Just one thing to report and then a couple of requests.
Okay.
So I had the opportunity to go on a little field trip on Friday, July 9th of our urban growth area. And it was really great to have some of the residents over there and some of our partners there and to organize that. And I really appreciated getting to know some people a little bit better and also to see urban growth area. And some of you have done that. And so you know how great it was to be out there. And if you haven't had a chance yet, I know that they, want to continue creating opportunities to get everybody out there. So thank you to everyone for that. And then down the road, when we talk more about roads, that'll be good information for us to all kind of have a visual of. Don't you love it when you make notes and you're not really sure what you're trying to tell yourself? So I'm hoping, Mayor and maybe Mike, that I can be involved in helping find a youth counselor and possibly somebody to be involved in the planning commission. I'd like to have a plan going into the school year to help with getting the word out and recruiting and getting applications and stuff for some of our high school students in the area. So if you guys are okay with that, if you can just shoot me an email, or I'll shoot you an email and we can get that going.
Yeah,
And then
I say go for it, because it's something we've been talking about for quite some time, and it just hasn't risen to the top as a priority. But if you're willing to take it, you have my full support.
Ronnie, does that require any kind of charter amendment or anything like that? What's our charter say about age for positions? Anything?
I think it's more of like a symbolic situation.
So it's a symbolic, yeah, exactly, symbolic, because they can't vote because they're not 18.
Right.
Or anything like that. So it's just more being involved.
Right.
I'll you can look into that, and then I'll get some info too.
We can definitely talk about to Tiger too, because they
Yeah,
have
that's what I
that
was gonna say.
program.
Tiger has a student counselor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They actually have a council. I think it's like 4 or 5 students.
Yeah. Okay. All
I'll
right.
reach out
That's
to
wonderful. I love it, Kate.
Thank you. And then I'm also hoping to invite the executive director of Community Partners for Affordable Housing to give a presentation to our council about affordable housing sometime in the next few months, like maybe before the end of the year.
Okay.
And just kind of talk about how they have purchased property and developed property in different cities in our area.
Mhm.
I know that they're interested in learning more about what we see as a need, what type of affordable housing we see for a need in our city, and how, in the next 5-10 years, they might be able to grow with our city and possibly have a location. So Mayor and Mike, if you guys can coordinate with me, I'll put you in touch with Rachel. And then if you guys are okay with her coming to do a presentation, we can figure out when, if that is okay.
Okay. I think that's fine. That's perfect. And
thank you.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, once we decide that we have room, say for instance, on the at the meeting in August, if there's room, there's nothing wrong with you reaching out and letting her know that. But you can talk to Mike and Ronnie and find out what this agenda looks like for the council meeting in August. And if there's room, and ready, we could do it then.
Okay, thank you. And then I have another note, but I don't know what I was saying to myself, so it can't be that important. Thank you.
Do any of you guys watch Seinfeld? Well, there was an episode of Seinfeld where he woke up in the middle of the night, wrote something on a notepad, and he thought it was going to be a really great joke. But then when he woke up the following morning, he had no idea what it was, so that does happen. So, Shauna.
Hi. First of all, I want to say I'm sorry I dropped off for a while there. My Wi-Fi just stopped working on my desktop, so I'm on the iPad now. So sorry about that.
All right.
So let's see, to piggyback on Chief Hapala's comment about WACA, once again, congratulations on being elected to the CEO board. That's awesome. And in addition to that, I've been talking with the new director of WACA, and it sounds like they're going to allow So Ernie probably is familiar with this, but most of you probably aren't unless you've been involved with WACA before. As a small city, we're not allowed a vote, which is really interesting to me. There's only one small city out of all of the cities that are part of this board that is allowed to vote. They're called the voting small city. And the problem with that is that what I've noticed since I started attending meetings is that sometimes they don't have a representative there. So the small cities don't have a vote. So I've been working to get that changed, and it sounds like it's going to happen. And I think I'm going to be the #1 alternate. So basically what we're going to do is if the small city representative is in attendance of the meeting, then I probably will be the next one in line and will actually have a voice to represent the small city. So I was pretty excited about that. It was a lot.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks. And then if for whatever reason both of us aren't there, then it'll go to, the next person in line. So I was excited about that. And then interesting that Kate asked about having somebody come speak, because I also have someone, the CEO of Keep Oregon Green. I spoke to her last week and asked her if she would come talk at one of our council meetings. Basically the entire focus of Keep Oregon Green is to prevent wildfires. And I thought it would be helpful to hear from her, and as far as what we can do as a city to help prevent wildfires. So I was hoping that we could have her come talk with us in the next few months.
Okay. And the same thing, same approach, talking to Mike and Ronnie of what the agenda looks like, going into any one of our council meetings is the way to go, because they know what kind of items that need to be addressed, whether it's a proclamation or some kind of resolution, and that we can fit it in. So just talk to them and see what we can work out. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Donna, good job. Okay. Micah.
All right. Apologize.
Micah, what did you say?
My 2-year-old just walked in, so I apologize. I'll make this very quick.
That's okay.
We had our CBDG meeting earlier this month, where we tabulated and finalized the scores for our rating for a shower truck that will be used in Washington County to help those who the homeless population to be able to, especially going through this pandemic, it's been an important thing for people to be able to have good hygiene. And this is a really neat addition. We approved it, and I believe it will get started by October 1st, that the truck will actually be out there and helping the people in Washington County. So that's it for me. I'm going to go back on mute.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Dave, you there?
I think I'm losing battery, but I'm just going to pass.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dave. Okay. Well, I think we've covered everybody. I'll just kind of close this out. I've only had one real meeting of any significance, and today was really a first live meeting that I've had with folks outside of our group, and that was the Washington County mayors and Catherine Harrington, the chair of Washington County. We met in Beaverton today. One of the hottest topics of conversation in that meeting was fireworks, and there was some clarification that we all needed to have from Washington County, because as you guys recall, Washington County chose not to ban fireworks on the 4th. And one of the things that Catherine made clear that I didn't understand, said if they did a ban on the sale of fireworks, it would only apply to unincorporated Washington County. It would not apply to the cities in that situation. So the only way we could really have a scenario where, say, Washington County has an all-out ban on fireworks, the sale and use, it would have to be a joint effort between Washington County and all cities in Washington County if we were to go that route. The other option, of course, is a statewide ban on fireworks. There is some conversation going on about the possibility of that. There are a couple of state representatives that have already talked about it a little bit, about doing just that, doing an all-out ban. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. One of the things that Catherine mentioned is that any of the tents that are set up and sell fireworks have to have a permit. Now, she had a list of those permitted tents. The one in King City wasn't on the list. So I've never known that we had a permit process for the sale of fireworks. So Mike, Ronnie, did anybody come to us and ask for a permit, or do we let permits for the sale of fireworks? Because that tent in the town center has been there for a few years now.
It would be a business license, as far as I know. I don't think we have like a permit process for fireworks that I'm not aware of.
I wasn't aware of one either, but
I would have to look at to see if they apply for a business license, but I don't have that information in front of me though.
okay. Well, I have the list that Catherine was speaking from. I will forward that to you guys because I'm not sure we really understand what that whole process is and whether or not we are the ones who actually approve a permit for the sale of fireworks. But it's something that we're going to have to dig into and try to figure out for the future. Our goal as a group of mayors and the chair is to make sure that we resolve all of these things well before the 4th of July of next year. And I think there's going to be a lot of groundwork being done. Our other organization that I belong to is the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium, and that is 24 mayors in the region. And we will be talking about that as well. And we have a lobbyist group by the name of Thorn Run, who represents the metropolitan mayors, and legislatively, they will guide us on what kind of information we need to move forward to our legislators on what our position is. Every year, we prioritize the top items that we want to advocate for legislatively. And it's highly likely that fireworks will be one of those items that we have on our list that we want to advocate to try to get under control. Now, with all that being said, this was absolutely the quietest 4th of July that I've seen in King City in 15 years. And I want to believe that people just kind of got the word that it's not a safe time to be using fireworks because of the fire hazard and all that. And usually, and we have to have make a distinction between legal fireworks and illegal fireworks. Those illegal fireworks, I think, are the ones that make the house shake when they explode, okay? And in the past, we've always had a lot of those. Those are the ones that affect pets. Those are the ones that affect people with PTSD and kids with autism. Those loud explosives are the ones that wreak havoc on animals and people with those kinds of conditions. So where do those come from? They're not being sold in the tents. I don't think they're being sold in the tents. But so we have legal and illegal fireworks. And we got to deal with both of them in order to figure out what it is we're going to do in the future. One is a fire hazard. The other one is the damage that it does to animals and people, okay? And it's time for us as leaders to try to figure out, is this a necessary thing to continue to do when in reality, there have been wonderful fireworks shows, displays done by professionals? Is that enough to celebrate the 4th of July and eliminate this personal usage of these fireworks? That's the kind of question that is going to have to be asked and answered moving forward into next year. Shauna?
My question is, can't we as a city make that decision for our city, just like the city of Tiger did for their city?
Yes, we can, and we could, but it's not enforceable. That's the reason that I was opposed to saying we were going to ban fireworks. We banned fireworks, and then what do? It's impossible for our police force to address the issue when people call and say somebody is firing off these fireworks and they're illegal and they're not supposed to be doing it. It's almost impossible to manage that. And, you know, and I'm just not in favor of saying, okay, we have made a decision to ban something, but we can't enforce it. That's exactly what the city of Portland did. They banned the sale, they banned fireworks, the use of, and they specifically said, don't call because we're not going to respond.
Sure, but
I think that's the wrong approach completely.
I think it's a step in the right direction, though. We're sending a message out, but I get it. It is hard to enforce things, but
it's impossible to enforce. And Ernie, what would you do? You know, you have 2 officers out there and you have all these calls coming in, and your obligation, if they're banned and all that, you have to confiscate and do all these things. And we're just not prepared to do that. I mean, I just don't see that being the right way to go. If I sell them in King City, if I have a tent that's selling them, then I turn around and tell them they can't use them.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I think if we were to put any kind of a ban in place, it would have to be for the sale and use of, and it's just changing the municipal code or our charter. But yeah, of course, would be extremely difficult to police it, of course. Right. But you know, there's always going to be people that don't follow the law, right?
Always.
That's just the reality of it. Yeah. But that shouldn't scare us off from making smart decisions as lawmakers, basically, is what we would be calling ourselves, because we are the city officials. We do make those decisions, and it's a responsibility that I don't take lightly. And when I see the wildfires out of control, and I see, all those kinds of things, then it makes me as a city leader think, well, what can I do? Right. And of course we can't police everybody. Of course we can't, but we can at least take a step in the right direction. And that's the way I feel about it. I'm not sure if other people share my view, but it's a step in the right direction.
Well, let's just say that we agree that we shouldn't even be selling them. Okay, that's the first step.
Sure.
But just looking at this year, I'm selling them in King City. But then I turn around and all I would have been able to do, what Tigard or Tualatin did, says we're banning the use of, okay? And it was too late to ban the sale of them because the tents had already been set up for a long period of time. So I'm not going to be in that situation where I said, it's okay to buy them, but now you can't use them. That's impossible.
Right.
So I say we need to stop the sale. And I'm in favor of doing that. I'm not afraid of stopping the sale of fireworks, and I'm not afraid of banning the use of them. But you got to have the right protocols in place in order to make that happen. And it has to happen soon enough where you, first of all, if there's a permitting process that says you want to sell fireworks here, you have to have this permit. And by the way, we're no longer going to grant any permits to sell fireworks in King City. But I think for this to work, I think the cities, adjacent cities, whether it be Tigard, Tualatin, Sherwood, Durham, Beaverton, we all need to be on the same page with this, okay? And I think that's where we're headed. I think all of the mayors kind of agree that this is where we need to go. I'm not getting any pushback from Washington County. Washington County wanted to make sure that we understood that they can ban it, but it's only the unincorporated areas. The city still has the responsibility for the city jurisdictions. So we've got a lot of work to do, but you guys ought to know that 4th of July is not my favorite holiday, period. Okay? So, Ernie, did I say anything that didn't make any sense?
You're muted.
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
And obviously I follow the direction of, the city. And if it's something that's what you want, I agree that a ban of the sale, I think that's the first place to start.
Okay.
And if the other cities are falling in line, then it makes it a little bit more difficult for people to get that. The people are going to get the big boomers, the ones that come off the hillside. Because I mean, this place, it's scary. It looks like San Francisco in a big fog, at midnight on July 4th. And, with everything that gets launched. And it is, as someone who did work July 4th at night, it is impossible to police. And it is just literally driving around and getting your own little personal 4th of July show, but also letting people know that, hey, we're out here and, be responsible, because Oregon's laws are so restrictive. I believe isn't it just like literally only a foot that a firework can fly off the ground in Oregon? I got to look at it again, but so it's interesting, but I agree, if that's the way you want to go.
Well, we're going to figure it out. That's the number one thing. And we have to strike while the iron is hot. And what drove all of this conversation this year were really the fire hazard. That was what drove all of this conversation that we've never had in the past. Last year, there wasn't any conversation, even though one of the major fires that we had in Oregon was ignited by some kids playing with fireworks. You guys remember that?
Yep, for sure.
And nothing got done. Nobody said don't do it. Nobody said don't sell them. Nobody said don't use them. But now Oregon is on fire. We got to do something. Okay? So, all right. Any other comments or concerns? I'm going to let you guys go.
I just have a quick question to wrap up that discussion. If banning the sale of fireworks in King City is the first step, which it sounds like it is, that means to make a change to our municipal code, if I understand it correctly, which means that we need to draft an ordinance. Is that correct?
I can't say that I know the exact procedure. I don't know. But I think we're going to have to look to the folks who know more about that part of the business than I do.
I'd say it's an uphill battle, Shauna. Like, if we want to outlaw the sale of fireworks, wouldn't we need to start with our state and House reps? Do you think?
I disagree.
Well, I would say, were you wondering if we could do it in King City, just pass an ordinance?
Our municipal code. So our municipal code for the King City just basically says that we follow the sections of Oregon fireworks law, or ORS section. Right. But we are the leaders of King City. If we want to ban fireworks, that's our decision as a council. That's why we are elected as a council. So I don't know if it's an uphill battle. I mean, I guess if all the councilors didn't like the idea, then it would be an uphill battle. But if we're all on the same page, then I think that's the way local government works.
Yeah, I mean, we could, you could build an ordinance, right? Draft an ordinance and pass it that we are not going to allow the sale of fireworks in King City. That you're probably going to get pushback from some of the folks who sell the fireworks. Even the stores sell fireworks, like Grocery Outlet sells fireworks, Safeway sells fireworks, like
Costco. And I didn't know this. Costco and Fred Meyer, they all sell fireworks.
Yeah, they do.
I think there's also a stigma there that you're kind of attacking American independence and freedom. So it's an American holiday. I think if the state or somebody is going to take this measure, the problem is people are just going to go elsewhere. We could. I don't think it's going to change anything, right? So it's a move. It's a move that maybe puts our businesses at a disadvantage or our area at a disadvantage for this sort of thing. But then they're just going to cross the street, or they'll set up a tent right in the parking lot next door.
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of moving in that direction. So we can either be at the end of the change, or we can be at the beginning of the change. I guess that's up to us as city councilors to make that decision.
Well, my thought is that we're going to be part of the change. We're going to help drive the change. Okay. And there are many layers, you have state, you have county, you have city. And now I better understand what the county's position is versus the city's position, and so on. I don't really know what the state's position is yet, but we have to figure that out too. And if the bottom line to this whole thing going into next year is that the first step we take, it says no longer will fireworks be sold in King City. Okay, that's the first part. But then right across the highway in the parking lot where Albertson used to be, you know, there is a tent there. So is Tigard doing the same? Is Tualatin doing the same? The other layer to that is saying you can't use them, okay? But the first step for us would be to say, what are we doing as a community, as a region, you know, to really make this effective? So we'll see.
Okay.
I'm up for the battle. And like I said, there's a lot of reasons not to use fireworks, a lot of reasons. And the human element and the pet element and all those things are as important. And then let's understand that there are two layers to fireworks, legal and illegal. There's a lot to it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the explosions, but I sure hear them, okay? All right, so anybody else have a comment on this? I mean, I know it's the kind of topic where we really dig in to some pretty in-depth conversation, but I think we're really gonna have to figure out what to do for next year.
Yeah, I support Shauna's position as well. I absolutely love fireworks so much, but that I love my state more. And this is the first year that my family hasn't purchased at-home fireworks and done that. It's been a really kind of great tradition of ours.
Yeah.
And the fires that we had last year, Ken, you mentioned, you know, it wasn't an issue last year, but I think those September fires were pretty traumatic for a lot of us. And I was worried on the 4th that something would happen in our area, and I'm glad it didn't. And I wish things were different, because I also, Ken, hadn't ever thought about it before. And even this year, I was saying to my family, I'm like, I know we would be fine. Like, we could go get fireworks and we'll be fine. We're not going to light anything on fire. But it just wasn't the right thing to do. And so I think that, you know, what I can do is reach out to counselors from other cities and see what their thoughts are. You've talked with mayors and the county. And to everyone's point, if the state's going to do something for the whole state, then that makes it a moot point. But we just need to figure out where people are kind of going there.
Absolutely.
And I will say that even though you can't enforce it, Ernie, and I know that, right? If you could clone yourself, you would. When we do ban something, it does put weight behind that. So if someone is caught with illegal fireworks, the ones that are illegal now, there's a consequence.
Oh yeah.
And so even though it's not like Ernie's going to drive around and like stuff is the trunk full of poppets or something, he, you know, if someone starts a fire using something that's banned, that's a heavier consequence, and people might weigh the risk differently and make the choice to not use them. So you asked, those are my 29 cents. There you go.
You guys need to know that other cities, Beaverton chose not to ban, Hillsborough chose not to ban, Sherwood chose not to ban. You know, so we weren't the only ones who chose not to ban. And there's a story that's being told about Forest Grove. Forest Grove banned from the 4th and the 5th. And they had so many fireworks being exploded after the 5th, it was nuts. Okay? So, you know.
Mike had a good point, though, in the chat of putting something like this on the ballot and letting people decide. I mean, I kind of see both sides of this, and this is coming from somebody, I can't stand fireworks. I never have liked them. I don't understand why we celebrate by blowing stuff up. But and I see it also from the perspective of pets, kids, people with PTSD. There's so many factors to it. At the same time, it's not an enforceable type of a ban, and it does hurt our businesses potentially. So I do see both sides of it, and maybe it's the type of thing that is better put to the will of the people.
That's another option. Hadn't thought about that, but
That's what I would recommend. If you're going to do something like this and you're going to, don't put it on your shoulders, because then you're going to be hated and you're going to be despised, and it's going to be something that can just be overturned at the next council comes in after they overthrow you. So put it to the people, get a petition going, put it on a statewide ballot, do whatever you want to do, but put it to the people.
Okay, power to the people.
Jason,
Okay.
love it. Bye.
Okay, team, we have talked about a lot. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you guys. And we need a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Who was that?
Do we have a second?
I motion to adjourn.
Dave Platt seconds that.
Oh, okay, Dave. Thank you very much. Okay, all in favor? Raise your hand. Okay. All right, you guys. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll resolve most of these issues, I think. Okay, you guys have a good evening.
Thanks.
Have a great evening.
Thanks, you too, guys.